Osio Nagata, hello everyone. My name is Lacey Horn, and I'm the CEO of Native Advisory, a strategic financial consulting firm working with tribes. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, former treasurer of the Cherokee Nation, and a CPA. In the next 10 minutes, we will embark upon another crucial topic in the realm of grants management. I'll be going over common grant mistakes that can lead to audit issues. Audits are legally required for federal funding above a certain level, and they may even be required by tribal law as well. Audits are also conducted by the federal agencies themselves, so it's important that you incorporate forward-thinking risk management skills while implementing federal grant awards. And today, I'll be going over some areas where common mistakes are made. Mistakes in these areas can, but not always, lead to audit issues, so it's important to have an awareness and a plan for how you handle them and mitigate any risks in the event of an audit. Managing grants efficiently, compliantly, and intelligently is essential, and that's what we'll talk about today. Point number 1, lack of compliance, the biggest one. First on our list is compliance. We often view grants as a form of financial assistance, but we can't ever forget that they are contractual agreements and are governed as such. Make sure you understand the rules, regulations, and your tribe's obligations with each grant award. Review the terms and conditions document carefully to ensure that you are incorporating any additional requirements that particular grant requires. A good example is the seatbelt usage requirements that show up in a lot of grants, where recipients are required to adopt and enforce on-the-job seatbelt policies and programs for their employees. Beyond contractual terms and conditions, OMB Uniform Grant Guidance rules will also come into play, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. With each grant will come certain certifications that you won't do certain activities unless you're reporting them. And a good example is the anti-lobbying certification most grants are requiring. Knowing what certifications were made in the application are critical to strong compliance so that you make sure you don't do something you said you wouldn't do. And finally, it's common to find guidance being issued alongside federal grants with additional information on project eligibility, what's not allowed with this particular grant, and other content that can be very helpful in assessing the context and intended outcomes of that grant. Non-compliance in any one of these areas can cause significant setbacks for your project and could lead to audit findings. Point number 2, inadequate record keeping. Keeping comprehensive records is not just bureaucratic red tape. It's critical for establishing a grant file for compliance purposes. Documentation is your proof of responsible stewardship, and it's the foundation for a good audit. It's also about capturing where each dollar went and what impact it had on your tribe. Program participant files are a big area for non-compliance and record keeping. Make sure that you're documenting eligibility appropriately and can demonstrate compliance. Essentially, you need to be able for an auditor to point to any grant expenditure, and then you be able to produce the supporting documentation for that particular expense or that decision that was made. Point number 3, late reporting is huge. Reports are your opportunity to show the grantor your achievements and your challenges. Missing a reporting deadline can have ripple effects that can jeopardize future funding opportunities with that agency and potentially others. So ensure you know the totality of all reports to be submitted, who is going to prepare the reports and who will submit, and then set reminders and make sure reports are submitted on time. Point number 4, misallocation of funds. Misallocation of funds is a serious issue that could lead to loss of funding, paybacks of general funds to the agency, or worse, legal actions. Always make sure federal grant money is being used precisely for what it was allocated for in the grant agreement. Point number 3 and 4 set me up for point number 5, lack of communication. Regular communication practices will help ensure everyone involved with the grant knows their role and responsibilities. This minimizes errors and safeguards against misuse of funds, misreports, and mess-ups in general. It's important that everyone knows exactly where their responsibilities are, what they're doing. It's the who, what, when, where, and why. divvied up among the team that will be responsible for tracking, reporting, and implementing the grant at every turn. Also, it's important that you have direct communication with your agency point of contact for a particular grant. These folks are your technical experts, and you need to know their name, phone number, and email. Fostering relationships with agency point of contacts is very beneficial for not only getting your questions answered and troubleshooting problems, but in demonstrating that you and your tribe are accountable partners. They will also help you with any required approvals of changes to your budget, scope, or key personnel, so keep them on speed dial. Point number 6, unrealistic objectives. Unrealistic objectives not only set you up for failure, but also affect the trust between you and the granting agency. In a grant application, you've committed to carrying out a project, an objective, and in turn, the agency believes in your mission, sees its value, and funds that vision. Don't overpromise and overcommit. Dream big, but also ground those dreams in the realities of time, expertise, and resources. Otherwise, it can tarnish your relationship with the agency and also create a domino effect for other issues. For example, having leftover funds may seem like a positive thing, but in the grant world, it is implied that your project didn't need all of the money that it received, and this could affect your chances of securing grants in the future. Which then leads me to point 7, lack of transparency. Transparency fosters trust, and trust builds community. Keep your tribal community, other stakeholders, and grantor in the loop always. Open communication can be your best friend and your most significant asset. Ethical violations, especially in research involving tribal members, can severely tarnish your tribe's reputation and trust. Always adhere to the highest ethical standards in all grant-related activities. Poor stakeholder engagement can cause all kinds of problems, from misunderstandings to an inability to spend funds, or it can be internal, where not enough internal staff know what's really going on with this particular grant. That's particularly bad when someone leaves. Your tribal members are not just the beneficiary of this grant, they are also key stakeholders, and seeking input from them can provide valuable insights and improve the project's quality and impact. Point number 8, failure to monitor subrecipients. If your grant involves subgrants, that means you're giving part of your money to someone else to manage, remember that the buck stops with you. Poor management by subrecipients can reflect badly on you, so make sure you're monitoring their activities and spending as diligently as you are your own. You are 100% on the hook if a subrecipient violates any of these issues we're speaking of. Ensure that any subgrants of funds are also accompanied by a subrecipient agreement with the ability to monitor that organization, and that you are requiring regular financial and data reporting from them, just as you are required to report that information to the federal agency. Point number 9, non-compliance with audit requirements. Audits aren't just a test of your financial records, they're an assessment of your operational integrity. Non-compliance here can put your current and future grants in jeopardy. I know lots of tribes are struggling with late audits right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We are starting to see some of our agencies freeze funding for tribes that have late audits. It's important that your internal team is prepared to get financial statements completed quickly, and also do your best to communicate regularly and effectively with your audit firm to ensure your audit is being prioritized for completion. And finally, point 10, direct costs errors. That's a mouthful. There's a lot of questions on allowability of costs. If you are dealing with grants in any way, then you must read the OMB circulars for yourself. Reading the circulars for yourself helps you understand the perspective on allowable and unallowable costs. After all, it is taxpayer funding you're spending. When I was treasurer at Cherokee, it was a requirement for all executive directors to read and certify that they've read the applicable OMB spending rules. Google search 2 CFR 200 subpart D, 200 CFR subpart E, and also read the procurement rules at 2 CFR 200.317 and .327 for basic overview of the main points I think anyone working with grants should read and know. But if you're serving as a grant professional at your tribe, then please take the time to thoroughly read all the applicable parts of the uniform guidance. Not all parts apply, but spending time each year dedicated to renewing your understanding of this, as well as additional training, that would be a major plus. So stay in the loop. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this is helpful. Managing grants is not just about getting the funds, but also about fulfilling our own sovereign tribal needs, enriching our culture, and elevating our people. Practicing these steps with each grant you receive will help you and your team be aware of the requirements and responsibilities that are unique to each funding source. In turn, your efforts will prove very beneficial when audit time rolls around. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you again. Widow.